All right, well, let's talk about the next thing up here, which is paying money, dollar signs, representing money, for lessons.
Mm-hmm.
Fighting game lessons.
Right. This actually came up because of Anti from the Smash community. He actually tweeted out recently, he was like, I don't know why people are paying like $40 for lessons. This is ridiculous kind of thing. And like, you should just be grinding 50 hours a day and to get better or whatever. Like, you know, like this is just, it's a dumb idea to pay for lessons.
Yeah.
And a lot of people started this little interesting debate on Twitter. It wasn't anything huge. It wasn't like a blow up Tuesday kind of thing. But I was just interested to see what your thoughts on the matter are. If you are a player who really wants to get good, and you're not, would you pay someone like a Justin Wong or a PR Balrog to help you learn to get better, or do you think that's just a bad idea?
I'm not sure that I would, but I also don't have anything against anybody else doing that. Okay. If they think if it's financially valuable to them to be better at fighting games, then I think that makes total sense. This is an issue that I've definitely evolved a lot on. I remember in early Street Fighter 4 days, there were some lessons being taught by
Justin and Gutex.
Justin and Gutex is who it was. And I remember being mad about it at the time. That it was not something that you should trade dollars for. That it was very foreign as a concept to me. But that was 7 years ago or so. Pretty long time, and I'm definitely over that. I no longer think about... The thing is that I was thinking of, maybe this is somewhat what Anti thinks too, is that fighting games are to be removed entirely from money. And then if you win money, that's like what happens when you win a tournament, but it's like, you're not doing this for money.
Oh, right.
It's like not about... It's not money. And so like bringing money into it in any extra sort of way feels like taboo kind of.
Right.
That's how I felt about it back when.
Right.
I don't know this guy. I mean, I know the name only. I don't know him as a person very well.
Right.
So I'm not sure, I can't really speak to what his thoughts are, but if that's what he's thinking, then it's something that you have to recognize as being, money is involved in it.
Right.
And money is involved in a lot of things. People trade dollars for everything to get better at all sorts of anything you can think of.
Going to school to become a mechanic. Going to school to become a doctor.
Right.
Going to school to become whatever.
Paying your friend's dad to give you guitar lessons or whatever it is. That's something that happens all over the place. And fighting games are not some sacrosanct little part of the world where there's no dollars involved. In fact, there are more dollars involved now than there ever have been. Like orders of magnitude more. So I don't think it should be considered anything weird. If you want to get better at fighting games enough that you're willing to pay somebody to do it, then I think that's fine. Because look, people invest a lot of money into this hobby. They do. To go to a tournament is a hundreds of dollars proposition for most people. Unless it happens to be in your hometown, you're getting a hotel, you're getting a plane ticket or a bus ticket, or you're splitting gas, you're paying money for food, you're entering games. All that stuff costs dollars.
Yeah, and I mean, I just want to even tack on that. I mean, the phrase "time is money," right? All that time you're traveling, all the time you're practicing.
Maybe you took off work, or maybe you traded a shift with a friend.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't begrudge anybody for wanting to get better, and one of the avenues to do that is to have a teacher. At the same time, it's important that you don't rely on that exclusively. I mean, definitely an important part of being taught is learning how to learn yourself.
Right.
And so once that's something that you figured out, you can sort of improve without having to spend money constantly. And if it's one of those situations where you're paying for like some for-profit college and the professors aren't real and you're not getting accreditation, don't do that. Okay, that's bad. If there's some FGC equivalent of that, if there's some skis lord taking money for that, please don't do that. Okay, but if you have some legit teacher who is really trying to help you out, I'm fine with that.
Right.
Anyway, what about you?
Well, I mean, before I get into that, there's been a lot of really good comments here in the stream chat that I've seen, right? From Keats, he mentioned, like, sometimes the greatest players aren't even the best teachers,
Oh,
right?
absolutely,
so that's like
sure.
that can be an issue, right? Muffin Man asked us, do we feel that someone who isn't a top player can teach a player to become a top player, right? And then I think I saw another good question here from, I saw another good question, but I'll mention it if I see it. But it's an interesting concept here to get into Muffin Man's question first, right? Keats was more just kind of a statement kind of thing, right? So Muffin Man's statement, I absolutely believe that that's possible for a non-top player to teach someone to become a top player. We haven't seen it happen because there's really been no such thing as teachers in our community really yet, right? But I absolutely think it can happen. My reasoning is Phil Jackson, right? He was a basketball player. He was okay.
I mean, to be fair, he was one of the top 300 players in the world at one time, right? He was part of the NBA. Not some bad player.
So he's obviously the first or second or third greatest NBA coach of all time, depending on who you talk to, right? I could picture someone like Shady K, who, I mean, do you count him as being like super top player, winning tournaments kind of thing?
I think he could be, but it's not something he's terribly interested in.
Right. Laugh.
Yeah.
Laugh was a great coach, right? There's a lot of players who I consider to be very, very good coaches, teachers, you know what I mean? And that's the thing is, like, in the fighting game, obviously you're not a coach. You don't have to put a whole cohesive team together like basketball or something like that. But in the situation of being, like, who would also be I mean, I guess Flo is a top player, though, because he wins
He's
tournaments.
ridiculous.
But, someone like him would be, anyone who can pick up any character and play anybody is like a really good coach or a teacher or a practicing partner. That's what I kind of consider in the fighting game community. I don't know if it's necessarily someone that you would have be a teacher, but have someone be a training partner with, to practice against, who can use every character, who can come up with great ideas. And there are a lot of players that I feel like that have the potential to be great training partners that might not necessarily be able to win tournaments themselves.
I think this is an interesting example that somebody brings up, which is Noel Brown.
Oh, yeah.
Noel Brown has turned himself, it's not even recent, but he's been a good player in Marvel for a long time. In every game he plays, he's good. Okay, he's not bad at anything. And if he wants to take a game seriously, like, he does well in it. But he doesn't win tournaments.
Right.
Okay? But he is up on the stage giving advice all the time.
To everybody.
Constantly. And it's a reason for that. He's awesome at it. Like, I've been next to him as he's giving advice, and I can hear it, and it's like really insightful. It's like tailored well.
Yeah.
He notices things that other people don't notice. Right. I don't know if that's just something that it's easier for him to do if he's not the one in the moment or what, but he's really good at it. And Dude. So a lot of, like, super good players, he is. Okay, I understand people don't like Noel. Got it. But you have to give him props that he is very good at this.
Look, a lot of people don't know this, but there was one year, I think Noel either didn't make it to Evo or something, I forgot. It was one of the years that Justin did really well at a tournament, and Justin even told me, he was like, I won this one game because Noel texted me and told me to do something.
That's right. I remember that.
2009 Grand Finals. Justin Wong versus Daigo. Justin goes with Abel. He counterpicks Daigo with Abel to start it, and doesn't work. And when you watch, there's that one film that AJ Papa made where he kind of chronicled that fight. And there's lots of shots, and at one point you can see the crowd. You can literally pan and see Noel Brown doing this. Like that. He's telling Justin to go to Balrog. And that's what Justin does, and that's how Justin reset the bracket. Like, he would not have reset the bracket had Noel Brown not told him to do that. So people have to believe that he is actually a really good coach.
He really is. But it's not just him. I can think of lots of examples of people who became top players who came up under some mentor. That mentor is not a top player, but, like, helped in that sort of lower stage of learning how to learn and learning the basics of games, that maybe, once you sort of set somebody's mind to understanding how to learn new things, then they can jump out and become a top player or do whatever it is that they do.
Right.
Whatever's not just fighting games. That's something I've seen in fighting games a lot. People who have mentors. And
yeah, that's true. I mean, someone mentioned Jabali and CJ Truth. I mean, goodness knows Jabali has never won anything in his life, right? I mean, and CJ Truth has gotten really good, so.
Indeed.
And Jabali always takes all the credit for
what
that.
about Knuckle Dew? He helped Knuckle Dew too. Fact.
Oh man. So someone asked, do you think that they can teach well enough in a game that they don't play as much? Can someone be a good general fighting coach?
Well, I think that probably has its limits.
Yeah, but I definitely think it's possible. I mean, because like
to some degree,
right? You were talking about like for example, like me, right? When we do commentary, I notice all sorts of crazy things when I'm doing commentary. I'm like, oh, he's doing this. When I'm playing, I'm like the dumbest player in the world. Like I forget. Like, I jump at people when that's the only way they can get a comeback on me. And, when I commentate, I'm like, why would you jump? That was the only way Bison could have jumped strong and killed you.
You're right.
And then when I played against Andy OCR one tournament, only way he could have killed me, I jumped at him and he killed me, It's just, that it's weird when you're in the moment. No, it's so hard to pick it out. So, yeah, there are definitely a lot of people who are good at teaching who aren't necessarily good at playing, I definitely think I'm a better teacher than I am a player.
Okay.
Let's put it that way. So.
Yeah, man.
Oh, man. But yeah.
In any case, are you okay with people paying money for that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because like I said, time is money, right? So basically, if you're saying you should be grinding 50 hours instead of paying $40 for an hour lesson, right? For some people, that time is more valuable than the money. You know what I mean? If you have that ability to spend that money and feel like it's worth it because you don't have the time to grind, then there's nothing wrong with it. Then there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Because in my opinion, time is every bit as valuable as money. You know what I mean? Because, I get 3 hours of sleep every night and stuff. So, there's definitely something to be said about that. So, yeah, it's good to grind and learn how to play fighting games yourself by dumping hours and hours and hours into it. But some people don't have that necessarily. Yeah. And they want to see if they can get to the point where it's worth dedicating that time. So, if you want to spend the money early on to get lessons from someone and someone can get you to a point where you feel good about it, and then you're like, you know what? I could be a top player. Now I'll dump all this time into it. It is kind of a little bit like a shortcut, and a lot of people are, feel like maybe that's kind of cheating or whatever like that. But let's face it. You're watching all these tech videos and stuff like that online, and just because it's free doesn't make it any different than someone teaching you, right? You're getting that same shortcut from all the free YouTube videos that all these people are putting out all over the place, right? It's the same thing. You just making it free doesn't make it any less cheating than paying money to a top player to learn how to play. So,
I'm with you.
Okay, cool.
All right.
Do you want to take a break and then we can come back and talk about Street Fighter V sales and such like that? Okay, cool. When we come back, we'll get. Did I say such like that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Good catch.
All right.
I was so confused. I was so confused. Okay, we'll be right back.
First of all, I just want to clarify to Bizarro Mike that I was not a goon in hockey. A goon is somebody who's just there to fight and cause penalty minutes. But I'll have you know, and not only did I lead my league in penalty minutes, but I led it in goals and assists, and therefore points. That's true. That happened one year. I led it in all those and also penalty minutes. Although, to be fair, and also to totally out myself as actually being terrible probably, that was a year I was 13, and the league had to, there weren't enough players, so the league had to combine 2 age groups. And I was on the maximum high level, and I was playing with 8-year-olds.
This is probably why you got called for penalties. Oh, yeah. You're just like, boing.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I was just mowing down these little kids.
Oh my god, that's awesome.
Oh man, it was a blast. Anyway, I wasn't. I also led my league in penalty minutes when I was actually in a legit age group, although not points. Oh, what a fun year that was.
David the Goon.
It was such a fun year.
Ultra Goon, yeah, exactly. Oh, that's awesome. Beating up on 8-year-old kids.
I was just skating right through them. Oh, God, I'm going to score.
So no wonder you're a Zangief player, right? You've been doing that your whole life. Just like armoring through everybody.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Okay, well.
All right, anyway, let's talk about whatever this is.
Yeah, Street Fighter V sales, right? So the Street Fighter V sales came out last week. We kind of talked about, this whole can Street Fighter V recover. We were talking about, bad launch and all these things and everything. Well, then the numbers came out, and Street Fighter V in Japan did not do particularly well. If you look at the top numbers for fighting games in Japan for first week of sales, it is dominated by Super Smash Bros. Wii U, but that's probably not a shock to anybody at this point, which was at 244,747.
That's a lot.
Second was actually Persona 4 Arena Ultimax for the PS3. Now, a lot of people might be going, what the hell? How did that game sell so well? Don't underestimate the popularity of Persona in Japan.
Clearly.
Okay, because let's put it this way. The RPG was definitely lifting the fighting game. The fighting game was doing the RPG no favors,
I wonder,
the third highest game was Vanilla Street Fighter 4.
Okay.
At 84,000, essentially 85,000 copies. Then Super Street Fighter 4 makes sense. They had that popularity continue at 80,000. And then finally in fifth place, appropriately enough, was Street Fighter 5, which was 46,836. Right under it was Ultra Street Fighter 4 at 45,660. So, needless to say, the sales didn't do particularly well in Japan by those numbers.
Those are physical discs.
Right, but those are physical discs. They're missing the digital sales. I don't know how popular digital sales are in Japan, though.
I have no idea.
I've heard that Japan is like me. They like owning physical copies as opposed to digital things. I still have such a ridiculous amount of CDs in my home.
Tisk.
But, maybe that could account for some of it. Maybe a lot of the sales were digital. But then, I've also heard that consoles just haven't been doing that well in Japan. I've also heard that, the game didn't come out in the arcade, so it didn't... Japanese players aren't really accustomed to having a fighting game come straight out to console, So there's definitely a lot of things that could go into this, but I don't know. A lot of people were kind of parading it around as this kind of like, oh my God, Street Fighter V is doomed kind of thing. So, do you think this is a bad sign?
It's not great. It's even if the digitals end up meaning that it's if anybody knows that there's like some usual ratio between physical and digital sales, I don't know. I don't know if there is. Right. If there is, and then it would help us calculate total numbers, that would be great. But if not, there's no way that it reached Smash levels.
Right.
Off the table. Also, probably unlikely that it reached Persona 4. Like, it didn't get twice as many.
Right. It didn't double.
Didn't get as many, I should say, digital as it did physical. So, it's not great. I don't think it matters that much, to be honest. In general, and I've been saying this the whole time, I don't feel like Street Fighter V is this make or break thing.
Right.
We're going to talk about some cool MKX releases in a bit. We're going to talk about Arbiter coming out. We're going to talk about Tusk and Killer Instinct.
Right.
There's, Revelator was just playable in LA.
That's right.
Irvine.
Anime Ascension, yeah.
Anime Ascension. So all these other games. Tekken 7 is coming out with a new version. There's all these other games. So I don't feel like this is like super important, just in general.
Right.
But for Street Fighter V itself, yeah, it would have been nice if it was better. Also, I want every country's FGC to do great, obviously, but I'm not super invested in the Japanese scene. I don't really care any more or less about their scene than I do about anybody else's.
Right.
And so if it's the case that North America's doing great and Japan's not, that's too bad, but it's not, I don't really care that much.
Right.
In general, what feels to me is the case so far is that Street Fighter V in tournaments is being played by people who are coming from different game scenes.
Yeah.
Street Fighter 4, but also, KI, MK, anime, whatever. It seems like a lot of people are converging on it. I don't know how many new players there are, but I also haven't been to a new major yet.
Right.
Haven't had time yet. We're going to do that this month at a couple of places. We're going to be at Final Round. We're going to be at NorCal Regionals. We'll see whether there are new people. It wasn't immediate that the 09ers showed up in Street Fighter 4.
Yeah.
They bought the disc. I mean, you can see the numbers. But they didn't show up at tournaments for a while. Definitely took some months, at least. So, we'll see. Again, though, I don't think it's super important.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting to me because I honestly think another factor of it is because there weren't a lot of players in the arcade. There was no arcade scene before it came out. I don't want to underestimate the importance of people like Daigo for the Japanese scene. Daigo is just learning the game. People haven't seen him play the game, and had he been playing this whole entire time and doing well in the arcade scenes, I feel like a lot more people would have bought the game. Because I honestly feel like Daigo has a huge influence on a lot of the fighting games, and Tokido and Bon-chan and a lot of those players out there. And, they just haven't had a chance to see a lot of them play, right? So I think that might account for a little bit of the problems with the sales. The interesting part to me is, like you talked about, a lot of people from different scenes and everything like that. It's interesting because I really do feel like they released the game early for the competitive scene, and it's paying off for the competitive scene. We've already had Evo break numbers.
Right.
Last week we talked about it, breaking the record, but just between some conversations between, I think it was Tempest Rob and Wizard. I think it was Tempest Rob. It was somebody who, because Wizard basically tweeted out, "Is like, these numbers are ridiculous," and someone's like, "Can you give us a hint at least? Is it over 3,000?" And Wizard just responded with a thumbs up graphic. So it's already over 3,000.
Okay.
Right at Evo. I just talked to a TO of another event, and he basically just told me that rooms are selling out all over the place because he has just ridiculous numbers for Street Fighter V right now. So, I don't think the low sales numbers mean anything yet.
Okay.
I don't think they mean anything yet. In fact, there's an interview with Matt Dahlgren. He says we're in this for the long haul and everything like that. That we're not trying to just do some. It was an interesting quote. He's like, you can't make a bad game good with time or something like that, but you can make a good game. You can add all the stuff around a good game. So, and the way that this game is turning out, it is very good so far. I mean, we've been seeing so many crazy results. We'll get into those in a little bit. This weekend, all the matches for Street Fighter V and all the tournaments were ridiculous. They were so good. So, I feel like Street Fighter 4 was maintained by that. Even the Ultra numbers, were close to Street Fighter 5. I feel like they only got that because the FGC existed. So I feel like Street Fighter 5, if they do play this long-term strategy, I think it'll work out pretty decently. The only thing that I would say is that in June when the story mode comes out or whenever they add a lot more content, they really, really have to push like, hey, look, new-ish version, they almost kind of have to relaunch it. They have to treat it like a new launch. Otherwise, people are like, why would I play this? Why would I ever go back to it? So.
Yeah, all right.
Okay.
Well.
Cool.